Hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm talking with Chris McCann, who's the Executive Director of Bay Area Housing Corp., and Madison Adams, who is the Program Director of a number of our programs, including the one that we're going to talk about today, which is the Legacy Homes Program. This is a recent launch. It's a program that's been in the works for quite some time, and it's really a very nice and elegant solution for people who may not have funding from the state, but have an adult child who perhaps has a developmental or intellectual disability. And you're wondering, what is going to become of them when I can no longer be there to care for my child? Or they're becoming an adult and just want some autonomy. And this program is really interesting because it allows a family to transfer a home to BAHC, who will then pick up the repair, the maintenance, the upkeep, the property taxes, all of those things, while your child can continue to live in a home that they're familiar with. Maybe it was their family home. They can live there in perpetuity. Caregivers can come in, or perhaps they could have roommates who would help offset the operating costs. All of this is really dependent upon the individual needs. Chris, what else would you say about the program just from a really top line point of view?
Suzanne, I think you gave a great overview of the program. I happen to have a child with a developmental disability, and I know firsthand how important it is for parents to have peace of mind of what's going to happen to my child when I'm gone. And that was one of the reasons we named it Legacy. And that's one of the reasons that we feel that we would be very good at being able to do this. Suzanne, we have 52 homes that we currently own and we do property management for. And so we have learned over these past 20 years how to do it and how to do it very well. So we're taking our knowledge now and moving it into helping families that may need this type of a solution. So you still can be receiving services, say, from the regional center for like supported living or independent living, but you don't have necessarily a place to where that child would live other than perhaps a group home or some other living arrangement. So in many ways, you're creating your own solution to housing for your child. And then we are helping to wrap in some type of services that would be able to come either from the regional center or perhaps private pay where the family would continue doing that. So it's a program that has been in the creation phase for a long time, and we're ready to launch it. Of course, I think people can realize that every situation is different. It's very customized depending on the individual's family and what the needs are for the person with the intellectual developmental disability. But yes, you are transferring it to Bay Area Housing Corp. The beauty of that is that we are a nonprofit. And so for the property taxes, which certainly mount up in the state of California, we would be able to get a tax exemption on that, whereas a private family could not. You also need to be careful as a parent when you're transferring that it would not go to the child, because if it goes to the child, then that is really messing with any type of their benefits. So after lots of research and lots of communication, that this is a solution that we came up with that we thought would be beneficial to the community.
It's amazing, Chris. The program is really fantastic. And as I understand it, it doesn't really exist anywhere else at the moment.
We have not, there have been various models in different parts of the country. We first heard about this in Wisconsin, and this was a long time ago. It was called WISH. And we first heard about it, we thought, gosh, what a great idea. The difference in the housing costs between Wisconsin and California are definitely different. So this is a big investment in California because most of the properties that we're looking at range anywhere from, $1 million to whatever. And that's a large to be transferring over to a nonprofit. And we recognize that. But this is a solution for families that are able to do that. And we've come up with some very creative ways that families, they may have a home, but thinking about long-term, how to keep supporting that home. And perhaps Madison can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I know you mentioned that, it's an individual approach. Every family and every situation is different. So as the program manager, we understand that the client and the child is the most important thing. That is our number one priority. So I will work closely with families and with clients to make sure that all of their needs and wishes are being met. That way everyone can just have that peace of mind, not to have to worry about that.
Thanks so much, Madison. Chris, you're kind of wearing two hats. You're the parent of an adult child with IDD, and you also have extensive background in Bay Area Housing Corp, which has for the last 20 years really specialized in acquiring and modifying homes for people with these situations. When did you first become aware of the need to be thinking ahead for a solution for your daughter?
That's a really tricky question. The reason being, like most families, when you get the diagnosis of somebody in your family having a disability, you are concerned with what is first and foremost before you: school, therapy, all of that. And many times you're not taking on the big picture because you can only handle so much. So I don't think I really got concerned or overwhelmed by the issue of housing until my daughter was much more around 18 years of age. I was thinking about school, about therapy, about her medical condition, all of those things. But I think when she turned 18 is when I started thinking about it. And as I've continued to get older, thinking about, okay, what is going to happen to Darcy when I'm gone? So those are the type of things. And each family's different. But you can sometimes only handle one thing at a time. But what I've learned, Suzanne, is that it's important to think about it as early as you possibly can, because you just never know what's around that bend. And I just would urge everybody to be thinking about special needs trust, and that you have plans for the future, even though you think it's never going to happen to you, it might happen to you.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot to think about, and every case is different, as you said. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate about BAHC's approach, knowing that it is such an individual solution. Madison, can you talk a little bit about how BAHC ensures that it fits each individual?
Yes, so we go through an extensive relationship building process in the very beginning stages where, our main goal is really just to get to know the family, understand the situation, understand what their long-term goals and wishes are, and, make sure it's going to be feasible for everyone involved. Once we've kind of gotten past that initial stage and we're actually memorializing and finalizing some of those things, we do document everything in a personalized housing plan that's specific to that particular family and that particular client, to make sure that all of their needs are memorialized, and that BAHC is made aware of all of the little intricacies about that family member.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Chris, what do you think is a common thing that maybe parents don't think about when they begin this process? What would your best advice be?
Do it early. And if you are lucky enough to have any services with the regional center, to get as many of those services as you think you may need in the future. Supported living is a wonderful service that would provide 24/7 support if your child would qualify. Many families have never heard about it. And I would urge people to talk with their service coordinator to see if their child might fit that. Also, there's a new program out called Self-Determination that you can look at the regional center. And that would be something else to look at. There's a lot of terms, and in-home supportive services, IHSS. So coordination with your regional center, working with your service coordinator, knowing about the magic words, supported living, and independent living, and IHSS. They're like, I always think of it a little bit, Suzanne, it's like the Wizard of Oz. And sometimes you don't know the curtain and the right words to have the kingdom open up to you. So sometimes families just don't know, and they're so overwhelmed, especially if English is not their first language, and if they are just not aware of the possibilities. So I would definitely utilize all of those services that are out there. And we are lucky enough, and I hate to say lucky enough, because if you have a child with intellectual developmental disabilities, they certainly are a gift. But if you're going to have IDD, having it in the state of California is probably the best state to be for services. What they don't have is housing. So we're trying to put our thumb in that dike and saying, don't think that the state is going to be providing you funds in order to get housing. Very, very, very few overall qualify for receiving housing. Most of the others need to find housing on their own. So I wouldn't leave anything to chance. As a family member, I would want to plan for that.
We're going to be talking in a few minutes with Kathy Hebert, who is really, I believe, the first family to begin this process with BAHC and going through the program. But Kathy is also, I think, a longtime friend of yours and sits on the board. Can you give us just an introduction to Kathy?
Well, Kathy Hebert called me up one day about 2-3 years ago, and she had received my name from the regional center of the East Bay, from the executive director, and was asked or said, to call because she was interested in that concept of a legacy home, and heard that we were exploring that. What I think is unique about this is Kathy was the president, the chair of the board of the Regional Center of the East Bay. She also had been the chair of the Association of Regional Centers for the entire state of California. And she had been exploring what to do with her son, Greg, because they have a beautiful home in the Fremont area, a beautiful 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom home that their son has grown up in. And they were exploring all kinds of possibilities of going in with other families and doing everything. And like the light went on saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if Greg could stay in our home when we are no longer there? And then who would be able to provide the support, and who would be the roommates for that? So that's when she contacted us, and we were in the process of putting this program together. So Kathy has been wonderful of being able to give us input and help guide us as we're creating this program. I must say she retired from being chair of the Regional Center of the East Bay and now has joined the board of BAHC because she was so impressed with our program. So I know firsthand that families are excited about this opportunity, and we want to do it right. We have consulted with attorneys, with tax consultants, with a variety of different professionals to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So Kathy could not be a better advocate for us and wants to share it with other people in the state as well. BAHC is interested. in this area. We're not going other places. We like being local, so we can be hands-on.
Exciting and fantastic program. Before we move into our conversation with Kathy, Chris and Madison, is there anything that you really want to make sure that you tell people about the program?
I would say, it's not for everybody. It may not be for everyone. It's a very sensitive subject. It's a hard thing to think about and a hard thing to talk about. But again, we go through lots of weeks of communication to make sure that everyone is feeling comfortable, questions have all been answered, and that it is ultimately going to be the best thing for your family member.
And I would just say, if you have a home and you are contemplating what to do in the future, to really give an opportunity to call BAHC, contact Madison, and see if this is a program that might work for you. The home does not need to be paid off like right now, but we work with you to give you ideas and possibilities to make sure that it would be in place whenever at the time of that transition takes place for it moving to BAHC. And this is a service. It's people think, oh, you're going to be getting our house. So, what an opportunity. Well, I'll tell you, it's a liability rather than an opportunity from our perspective, because there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And we want to make sure that we are a steward for your family and we are there to serve. So yes, it comes to BAHC. And I've got to say one other thing, Suzanne, that if something happens to your child while they are living in that home, and once it is transferred to BAHC, that home will remain serving other people that have intellectual developmental disabilities. And that's what gives me goosebumps, is that it's a legacy, that we are creating more affordable housing options for other people in this community. So yes, your child would be the primary resident, but there's also an opportunity for other people to be able to live in your beautiful home and then to create that sense of community. So it's a win-win.
Chris and Madison, thank you so much for bringing such an important program to families in the Bay Area who have someone that they love very much with IDD.
Thanks, Suzanne.
So Kathy, what are some of the challenges of raising a special needs child?
Wow, that's a life-altering question there, because all I can say is it's very life-altering. I think the thing that sums it up the best, I was thinking about this, there's a poem, lovely poem written by a mother of a special needs child that says, "Welcome to Holland." And it summarizes how all your life you've planned to go to Italy. And when you get off the plane, you're in Holland, which compares it to all your life you've dreamed of having a child, the perfect child. And when you get off the plane, you're in a different destination. And I think that to me has just struck a chord in my heart, that that's truly how it is. And you go into Holland and you don't really wish to be there, but once you're there, you look around and Holland's okay. Tulips, windmills, people there with the same things you're going through, and that it's an okay place to be. Maybe it's not as flashy as Italy, but it's a good place. And that poem I have used all my life and just can't think of anything better that summarizes it. It does talk about how the pain will never go away from raising a special needs child, but it puts it in perspective that it's okay to be here. And I think that's my experience.
That is such a lovely way to frame it. It's positive, and there are so many positive things that come with raising a special needs child too. There are lots of blessings that go along with that.
Right. And you have concerns when you have typical children too. You lie awake many nights worrying about your typical children, but I think the concerns are just bigger and different when you have a special needs child.
We'd love to get to know more about Greg and your family situation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Greg is one of three of my children. He's the
Whee!
oldest, and I have twins who are 2.5 years behind him. And then, of course, my husband and I, who've been married for 34 years.
When you and your husband were considering Greg's future, what sort of financial planning did the two of you do?
Well, we did the typical thing. I think once we had all three of our kids, Greg being the oldest, we put the will in place, which was the first thing. And then once we had the diagnosis with Greg and knew that our life would be on a different path with him, we went to a special needs lawyer and got a trust for Greg, and then got a special needs financial planner. We have him through Merrill Lynch, and they have a special needs department. And we were lucky enough to come across a terrific guy that we've known for many years and has guided us and given us the ins and outs on how to plan. And so we opened a trust for Greg. We also applied for Social Security when he turned 18. And then when the CalAble accounts kicked in, finally came to California, we were able to open one up for him as well. So, and then we have a life insurance policy. A second to die. So, and only have obtained all those just by going to workshops and becoming aware of how to plan financially.
So with a trust set up, you obviously have a trustee. Do you also have a trust protector?
I do not. And, that terminology was new when becoming part of the Legacy Housing Program. Our trustees are our two other children, and I'm not sure who our trust protector will be. It may be one of them.
Okay.
Not sure yet. Things to think about. There's always something to plan for, just when you think you have it all.
And it is a lot to put in place. It seems
It
like
is.
it seems
It
like
is.
you and your husband have really done a great job of thinking ahead.
We have, but it didn't come overnight. It came over, kind of when I was ready to tackle the situation and had the time, or when I was, mentally in a spot I could be ready for it. That's a challenge too, as a parent. Sometimes you just got to have everything off your plate, and there's too much overwhelmingness, and you just can't do it. So I'll do that later. I'll think about that tomorrow.
And how old is Greg now?
29.
29. Okay. And so you're starting to think there's going to be a point in the future when you and your husband aren't there for Greg. And what will that look like?
Lie awake many nights thinking those things.
Exactly.
And what are we going to do? And have a good friend, Anna Wang, who has this wonderful model of his day program, Friends of Children with Special Needs, and started getting involved with that, only to find out the apartments weren't really available. And so we ended up forming an LLC about 6-7 years ago, another group of parents, to see if we could emulate their model of buying land near the day program that a lot of our kids attend. And took 6 years of finding out that was a really hard thing to do.
So what are your hopes for Greg's housing?
Well, once I found out that the apartment community model wasn't going to happen and it costs so much money and so many families aren't ready to provide, that's when I turned to the executive director at our regional center of the East Bay, because I was president of the board for many years. And I turned to Lisa Kleinbub and I said, what are our other options? And she said, you should call two places that I know that do legacy housing. And one was Chris and one was another one up here in the East Bay. And I did call both.
Okay. So BAHC, as you know, has worked in this space for 20 years and has 51 homes that they own, and they have adapted these specifically for the residents, and then they maintain them, and the regional centers then, supply caregivers and so on. So the legacy program is actually more of a private solution to that. How did you, what do you find most compelling about this particular model?
That Greg gets to live in the house he grew up in. And that my husband and I can do that for him. We thought going the apartments and in a community model was the right way, but it's a lot of money and we're older and felt like it would almost be like taking on a second mortgage and we couldn't get people to join in. And just one day I just looked at this house thinking, what are we going to do? This isn't working. This house is where he can live. This
Right.
house is huge. I live in a single story ranch home on a third of an acre in a lovely neighborhood, 7 minutes from his day program. This could be it.
Oh, that's
So
lovely.
it just this, I don't know, just this calm inner peace. And my husband felt the same way. And that's what prompted the phone call to Lisa.
Oh,
You know,
fabulous.
can kids live in the house if the parents make it happen? You know, and there's legacy. And that got my phone call to Chris.
Perfect. Oh, that's
I know.
perfect. And tell me about Greg is pretty social. He
Mhm.
would like the idea of roommates and this model would allow him to sort of be matched with roommates that are good for him and work for him. And then they living in the house would provide a stream of income that would in turn keep the house, pay for the house.
Operating, running, right,
Yeah,
maintained. Yes. It just, I can't tell you the good it does in your heart to feel that this is an option because, there just aren't any out there.
so how do you think Greg will respond to this experience?
He knows. I think he's okay. Like he's tricky. This is a kind of a
Yeah,
forbidden topic with him, but we hope as he gets older and as we go on, but he knows.
great.
I think we've asked him, would you rather live here or would you rather live in the apartments like Friends of Children with Special Needs has? He picked here. So
Well,
that kind of helped guide us because we could have pursued and gone down that route, probably sold this house, downsized our lives quite a bit to pay for all this and gone through, I don't know, years of building something. But
right.
he helped guide us.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mhm.
So it sounds like you really want to move forward with this
Truly.
model. What what are you expecting from the program in the future?
Well, being the person who's got to help Chris and all you guys plan with it, it's been great to work with you and to be able to know that the wishes of what my husband and I want will be carried out. That just means the world to us. I remember Chris first said, you guys get to make the wish. And, if you want, we want all the roommates to be like maybe from his day program where they can all get picked up at 9 o'clock on the bus together, dropped off at 3. Nobody's there during the day. And then they just need the help during the evening. And that's just perfect.
Yeah, I think there's something huge about Greg being able to be in the family home.
There is. And then, getting to put our wishes onto paper and somebody helping to implement those when it happens later on will just, I know I'll be smiling down from heaven, knowing those wishes are fulfilled.
Your other children, have you talked to them about this?
We have.
And
They are just, mhm.
and how do they
They
feel
get
about
it.
it?
They get it. At
Okay,
least they're showing that they get it. They're twins. They're 27, so they're old and they're older and responsible as well. So they're old. They get it. After we made the call to Chris, and because in our minds the house was going to be something that split 3 ways. When
right.
we're gone, my husband and I, right? They get inherited, and we'll split it and get the money and profit from that. So this was going to affect them greatly.
Mhm.
At least the house piece of it. And they get it.
Right.
They're very, very supportive.
So what were the things when you talked to estate planners and when you were, in the process of planning this, what were the things that were most important to you to have laid out?
I think the most important thing was that Greg would get to live here for his life. We have heard some stories where that doesn't always happen. And I guess when we talk to our estate planner, that written into the agreement means the world to us.
And as the process goes along, do you feel like you have the flexibility to make changes for Greg that he would need in this living situation?
I do. I do. Because hopefully we get to live a good lot more 10 or 20 years and checking in with BAHC as we want to do annually, if not more. If there's any changes or anybody has any suggestions, it feels like we get to be a partner the whole way.
Mhm.
And that feels like we're totally invested, and that's a great feeling to have.
Advice for
Yeah,
parents?
my advice is, I've gone down other routes, pursued buying land with other parents in an LLC, and that didn't work out as we thought it would. And Legacy Home came up to the top of the list at that point. And once I talked to BAHC, it was the right thing to do. I knew Legacy Home was for us because we have a house, the house that Greg has only known, and it just is right. And I can only encourage others to have their eyes open and listen to this conversation. And maybe it's not the right timing now. Maybe your kid's only 13 and it's really hard to foresee the future. But knowing the options out there is, I think, the best choices we can give to parents.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, thanks for being willing to talk to us and share your story and Greg's story. Once again, knowing that everybody's story is a little bit different, but it helps. It helps to hear. So,
Thanks, Suzanne. My
thanks,
pleasure.
Kathy.